All right, hope everyone's having a great week. We're going to do a Bitcoin video update. We're going to go through the miners. I'm going to use Riot and Mara, the pairs. So Riot Mara denominated in Bitcoin, as well as Bitcoin high time frame, MicroStrategy pair, and we're going to call it a day. So folks, anything right now other than massively bullish to me is not represented in the charts. The technicals are telling me that a big move is coming. The emotion in the market is telling me that a big move is coming. The questions on, whether what an ETF impact is going to be having from a petri dish, essentially, that is crypto Twitter, is also telling me that a big move is coming, when the reality of the situation, in my opinion, and again, I'm not a financial advisor, don't take anything I'm saying as financial advice. I could be wrong. Everyone could be wrong. No one knows what's going to happen in the future. I'm simply giving you my opinions that I have very strong conviction in. That being said, we're arguing over, this 1% of the folks on what's going to happen, with the price of this asset, when this 99% are at the gates, okay? Are at the gates. And I'm not saying 99% are going to be open the doors to those gates and rushing in, but what is not priced in is what we heard from Bitwise this week, in my opinion, with the survey of fund managers. I think 38% of them said they expected ETF approval within the year 2024. I heard on a Spaces today that BlackRock supposedly has clients that have $2 billion ready to allocate upon ETF approval. That was from a source close to BlackRock. Who knows if that's true or not? But the point being is there aren't any models for the people arguing inside of this little 1%. Okay, there aren't any models for the potential demand that hasn't arrived. And so, putting that aside, I'm going to point our attention to the monthly chart and simply, start here on why am I massively bullish? Well, let's throw up where we are right now on the monthly, and I've got the Ichimoku cloud up here. And what I'm doing to illustrate here is something that I don't take lightly, and that's, the first month that this candle has risen above the cloud. And as you can see, and again, this is an indicator that took 30 years to formulate. Last month, where did it stop? We wicked above it and it stopped below it. Where did we open the new year? We opened below it. Believe it or not, the weekly is green, and right now the monthly is also green as well. And we're starting to get some separation above it. And so let's close that down and then take a look at the Bollinger Bands as well. And if we look at the Bollinger Bands, again, this is a monthly chart. Just a monthly chart. What happened last month? It was the first month where we had a candle pierce through the top and close outside that Bollinger Band, which we remain above today. When was the last time that happened on a monthly time frame? The last time that happened on a monthly time frame was, we got a close above it in October of 2020. And the following month, it kept going and approached this mid trend line. Okay, and so this is what, on a high time frame, are the first steps of major expansion. And so, until proven otherwise, that's what we're in right now. It might not feel like it with all the volatility, and it's not supposed to, right? We're going to be having this same conversation if and when we're at 75K and we dump down to 59K, or whenever we're at 97K and we dump down to 77K. It's going to feel, we're always going to feel that same feeling of emotion. And that's kind of what's called the wall of worry. You climb the wall of worry. That's where that term came from. And you're still as concerned and worried as you were. If we look back, we're having the same conversations as we had when we were 25, 26, 27. We're just climbing the wall of worry. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. I love the wall of worry. I love it. I really do. Because those that have concerns over the volatility that may be coming, if an ETF were to be approved, I submit have already positioned for this volatility. Those that are on Twitter, you see these wallet addresses of entities accumulating hundreds of Bitcoin a day. You think they're doing that because they're trying to time what's going to happen next week or the week after or the week after? I submit to you that 90% of the people, these large entities that are acquiring now, have a minimum 4-year time frame. Minimum 4. They do not care if it goes down 30% from here, 40%, or up 70% or 80%. They're in an accumulation mode, and so that's the mindset of 99% of what we don't see. Whereas what we see on Twitter is the mindset of the 1% that are worried about what's going to happen next month or the month after, or next week or next Tuesday or the Sunday, or are we going to dump or are we going to pump? That's not who's, in my opinion, driving this market right now. The folks that are that worried are positioned. They're positioned. They're not in this 43,966 that just went up to 67, just went up to 68. That's not what's moving price right now. Those people have spoken, in my opinion. This is my opinion. And so it's just a beautiful setup. It's a once in a lifetime setup, quite honestly. We don't get these types of setups that often. And when we do, it's a beautiful thing in terms of emotion, in terms of price, in terms of sentiment, in terms of where we are. I mean, look at this monthly chart. Let me pull up the next chart. So let me close out that Bollinger Band. I'm going to pull up the weekly count. And again, like this is our weekly chart. This is the weekly chart that's speaking to us right now. Price right now, literally on a weekly time frame, is highest it's ever been this year. It's highest that it's been all year right now on a weekly time frame. Now, obviously, we had daily touches that were higher, but looking at this chart right now and going all the way back where that green line is right now, there has not been a weekly close that was above this line. That's where we are right now. And we're wondering what's going to happen. We're worried. We're worried. And you have scenarios of pump or dump or dump or pump. I don't hear anyone saying rip and then rip. Like that's just not an option, but that's what this chart's telling me. That's what this chart is literally telling me: rip, then rip. Expansion, expansion, expansion. Hyper expansion. And what hasn't happened? Okay, so what hasn't happened? I most certainly saw us going higher than where we are through the end of the year, right? So higher than where we are through the end of the year. So does that invalidate anything that the move is taking a couple of weeks longer than I was expecting, as I was talking last month? No, it doesn't. Here we are in this, this just like triangular consolidation pattern, just wedging up against this zone, just price compression. And so for me, this is just an incredibly bullish setup. There's no way around looking at this setup other than completely bullish. And now let's throw up the RSI and see where that is. We always want that to stay above 70 in expansive phases. And where is it? It's above 70. It's above 70. We had a couple touches. You think we have a little hidden divergence in here, right? We've got possibly a little lower low there, a little higher high there, potentially. I'd like to put that in line to really confirm that, but I'm not going to do that right now. Anyway, the point being very eerily similar to what RSI did in that region, right? Back in the fall of fall through December of 2020, where it had its initial pump and then a couple week consolidation before the next major leg. And what was price doing there? Almost identical to what it's doing here. Basically just consolidating in this ascending triangle type structure prior to expansion. So again, that's what the technicals are telling me, and nothing has changed. So nothing has changed with the analysis. Now, I suppose if we were to get a weekly close out of this triangle, and let me zoom in because I realize that's small. So like, what are the what ifs? What are the what ifs? Because you got to look at all the different scenarios. I know there's a lot of traders on this platform. You know, so if we were to do like a what if scenario, like what would be a bearish setup of this? You know, like a weekly close, you know, in the low 40s, you kind of come up and retest it on a weekly candle wick 42,884, and then a drop back down. That would be a type of local week invalidation. I don't even want to say invalidation, but that would just take this structure that we're looking at and make me say, all right, maybe 4 isn't in. Whereas I believe this little minor 3-4, I think 4 is in, and we're ready for expansion. The alternative would be something like that, where 4 wasn't in. However, again, that's just speculation until we have any break of that structure. That's just speculation. But I know people like the alternative viewpoints, and so that's an alternative viewpoint. Next is Mara. Weekly chart. I think I posted this one a few hours ago. Let me throw the weekly up. And again, this is just one of those types of setups that, in my opinion, are very rare, but also from a technical standpoint, the information is in the chart. The information is in the chart to me. And again, I go back, this is going back to 2019, where we've got a level, an important level that acted as resistance. So what do I mean? 1, failure. Okay, boom, failure. Inverse head and shoulders, breakout. Objective target of that inverse head and shoulders breakout was actually this 57 wave 5 peak. And so, you know, well, what did it do on its way? Let's just examine before I go to where we are right now. What did it do? What did the price do? How did it interact with that level on its way to its third, minor third, or major third impulse? Well, what it did was, coming out of this ABC correction, you had a 1, 2, 3 overshoot of this neckline, retest prior to resumption. And so what am I seeing today? What are we seeing today? Well, we're seeing very similarly a very critical area in this chart. And that critical area is denoted by this green rectangle that acted as significant support, failure, resistance, right? Resistance. It broke through it. You got a clean retest, and look at that wick. It was just absolutely bought up. Absolutely bought up. You got a nice reaction where you wanted to see a nice reaction. And that is what I'm zooming in. This is what you want to see. Very nice looking wick, long wick, indicating that the buyers came in recognizing this, recognizing that this was in fact a critical area in the long-term history of Mara's price. And so where we are today is just where we are. I mean, in terms of projecting these movements, nothing has changed. The trajectory here remains to be, you know, if that's the target, what am I, right? What are we supposed to do around that area? This is supposed to, that's the mean, the way I look at it, right? And I got another question on, how do I project these angles? Well, I use a little bit of history to project the angles, and I'll share that a little bit with Riot next. But yeah, just to recap here, I think this next move is underway. Could take us to that 64, 80, 90 region before any type of correction, and then I'm looking at 123 range for this wave 3 to happen pretty fast, sometime within the next couple months. Would not surprise me at all. Next, let's go to let me go to Mara BTC, just because we talked about this a lot last week, and I was specifically talking about the relationship between the price of Mara and denominated in Bitcoin's price as these wave type movements. Okay, it's not going to ever be a straight line, and history tells us, this is a weekly chart. History tells us that in the past it hasn't been. Now, past is not going to guarantee that what's going to happen in the future, but if we're going back to, again, the same type of setup period, and that's the fall of 2020, we saw, just to review, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave movements and ABC correction that concluded in November, and then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movements coming out. Okay. Inverse head and shoulder, beautiful setup. You saw that the Ichimoku cloud here acted as kind of an area where it underwent its correction. So where are we today? Well, where we are today is what we talked about in the video last week. I drew this line out and said, 1, 2, I had 3 right where it finished. And then I said 4 could come all the way back down to this trend line, and that's what we have. That's nearly a perfect trend line test. It tested, more importantly than that trend line even is what it did when it hit the bottom of that cloud, right? This is a weekly chart. You know how important I think these Ichimoku clouds are in a high time frame, especially. Is that a coincidence? These things coincidences that it ticked the bottom of that cloud and got bought up against Bitcoin? I don't think so. And so when I'm looking at this chart now, this move looks closer to completion. The correction against Bitcoin looks closer to, if not having completed itself this week. And so my assumption would be, if we don't get another move down here, like that would be bearish, right? You breach the cloud, come back up, try to get over it. That would be a bearish look. And so my assumption here is that it obviously didn't do that. And so my assumption here is this 5 is next. Okay, that 5 is next, and we have outperformance ahead of us. Next, let me do Riot. The Riot chart, again, from a technical standpoint, just looks very similar. Mara is most definitely appearing stronger at the moment. If you look at the pair, if you look at the price, and it does look like they are potentially producing more Bitcoin. Mara is in Riot, but I can't get into, I don't know under the hood definitively, which company is better, what the market knows, what the market doesn't know. All this information the market knows. And so has that already been priced into Mara? I have no idea. Was that what just happened in the last month? Was all that priced in? I have no idea. Is Mara going to outperform Mara moving forward, or is Mara going to outperform Riot moving forward? I have no idea. I really don't. The technicals on the Riot chart just look good to me independently, because I get a lot of questions of compare the two, and the technicals just look very, very good. This is a chart going back to 2018, and I just see a very symmetrical type of setup with Riot, as you were in this just massive type of consolidation. I don't even know if you can call that a flag, and then it broke out of the flag, right? And then what do we have now? This you can kind of call a flag. Consolidation, up towards the top of the flag, and this is what you want to see at flags. This little coil up, and it stops, and it gets closer, it stops, and then boom. And so this is the type of setup that's being presented to me right now, and the counts are very similar. And so why do I have my, this wave 3 peak somewhere in March? Well, I'm simply applying the law of kind of equal angles, proportionate angles. Let's put it that way, not equal. And that's my own law. That's nothing. That's not legitimate, right? This is Kush's law. And that all this tells me is I'm just trying to take a look at the angle of this first impulse back in 2020. Okay. To the wave, to the wave one top, see if there's any relationship with the rate of ascent of its move as it got to wave 5, and it was actually in line, right? So if you look at, let me zoom in. If you look at the angle again, this angle I'm measuring, going through the peak of this wave 1, traveling all the way to 5, that was consistent, right? It traveled that same angle. This was the mean, if you will. This line here I've got was the mean, and it traveled below it, and then eventually got above it. Oh, that's an ugly line. I'm sorry. So if I'm applying that same rationale, and I could be wrong with this, but if that's how I do this. If I apply that same rationale and say, okay, what was the angle off the lows to the wave 1 peak? Okay, that angle is established, and if we continue to just extrapolate the same rate of change, right, in time, and that's what determines the angle, rate of change in time, we arrive at for Riot, a wave 5 peak potentially at somewhere in the 300s in April. That's what the technicals are telling me. I could be wrong, but that's what it's telling me. And so what's next? Oh, no, one more thing on Riot. So from a technical perspective, here's where we are on the weekly chart. Very similar, in my opinion, to where we were back in the end of December, where this important downtrend was resistance, right, on the wave 1, failed, and then negotiated against, reclaimed, and then it went. Okay, what was it this time? It was the same thing. This was resistance, wave 1 peak, failed wave 2 correction, breach above it, and now we're literally just getting a retest. Second week in a row. Price did wick below it, but the weekly close reclaimed this trend line. And so again, and what else did it do on a weekly basis? It touched that cloud and this area of importance that kind of denoted the difference between what's been support, and kind of resistance. So that's my view on Riot. Now I'll do Riot Bitcoin. Where did that go? Riot BTC. Okay, there it is. And Riot Bitcoin again looks like it's kind of moving in the direction that we talked about in the last video, where you've got you had a period of outperformance against Bitcoin starting in November. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of outperformance against Bitcoin. A couple week correction kind of down here at the 2. This important area, we really want to see this get above it next week. You really do. I mean, it failed the cloud. It failed the Ichimoku cloud. That was resistance here. I really want to see a strong move with Riot in the next week or two to bust through all this and show some strength. As of right now, in the context of a move, that's how I'm approaching this. Much like, although it was much more aggressive back in 2020, Riot's move was far more aggressive, right? So this is the move coming out of the November 2020 lows. 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of outperformance, 1, 2 weeks of underperformance. So that was the 2, and then you had a 3, 4, and 5. And now this angle of outperformance was much greater than this current angle of outperformance. Okay, that can't be denied. So there could be something there, or it just has catching up to do. I don't know. We're going to find out. What's next? MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy just continues to look fantastic. This is a weekly chart, and this might be, you know, next tomorrow, one of the best looking charts in finance right now. I mean, you just have this, look at this weekly consolidation channel, vertical consolidation channel. In essence, it struggled at this important, let me move this, sorry, at the important 50% retracement level from this wave 5 top to the initiation of this entire impulse back in March 2020. So that's a 50% retracement, and that's where we hit some resistance. So not shocking, not surprising. That's an important area for the market, and that rejected off of that level, but stayed within this channel. RSI still overbought on the weekly, which is what I like to see. And again, folks, look at this chart. How often do you see RSI over 70? Excuse me, I think I might have said 50 just now. You don't see it very often. When you see it, you're in early stage expansion. Awful circle again, awful. Early stage expansion. So that's where I believe where we are. And next, I'm going to go through MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, because this one, again, it's really, I think, gives us some information as well that's fairly relevant. I do hear see a lot of posts about, oh, well, what about the ETFs that are going to come out? Is that going to be bad for MicroStrategy? I don't know. All I know is what the chart is telling me about MicroStrategy denominated in Bitcoin. You decide if these are bullish setups. To me, they're bullish looking setups. And what do I mean by that? If we're looking at, this is coming off the June 2022 or May 2022 when MicroStrategy bottomed against Bitcoin, you basically have just this flagging structure, broke out of this little wedge, broke out of little retest. And so these, to me, are bullish structures. These are bullish structures. So what this is telling me, all I need to know, in that a breakout of even this flag here, you know, gets us to 0.02 Bitcoin being the price of MicroStrategy. I could even see us getting up to, you know, so that flag, that measured move off of that flag could get us to 0.026. So what does that mean? That means if Bitcoin reaches $100,000, MicroStrategy is going to be $2,600 if the pair reaches 0.026. And so that's all I can do. That's all I can do is to look at this chart objectively and say that that is a bullish structure. Now, back in 2020, you saw this kind of wedge overshoot, and then it broke down, and this was corrective, right? You got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave corrective move kind of down, and this was a bearish structure, right? That's bearish. This looks to me bullish. So that's the best I can do for you folks. So that's it for the video. I hope you're all having a great Friday. Have a nice rest of the weekend, and look forward to doing more of these. Take care.